Hi, Chloe. It's so great to have you on the podcast. It has been a long time coming. I know we've been talking about this for such a long time, and I'm so excited to chat with you today.
I'm excited too, and it has been a long time coming. And I'm really just excited to be here and see what we chat about.
For anyone who is new to you, can you tell us just a little bit about just like a brief history of what brings you to where you are today in your business and what work you're doing in the world right now?
Definitely. So I think I was always going to do this work because I was like that person, like in high school, like having D&Ms with people on MSN Messenger because we didn't have like Facebook then. That was like my favorite nightly activity. I was always the person people went to for advice and things like that. I was really interested in personal development. I think that the first book I read was when I was 12. My parents think it was earlier, but I don't remember it. So I don't count it. I only count my own memories.
Mm.
So I was really sort of into things when I was quite young. And I was like, oh, I'm going to be a psychologist because that was kind of the only thing that I thought I could do that kind of work in. So I was just like really interested in that. I went on to do that at university, even though when I started my degree, I knew that I probably wasn't going to become a psychologist, but I was so interested in that area still that I pursued it. And I did come across coaching. I learned about coaching in my university degree. And I remember asking the tutor, like, oh, I want to do that as my job. Like, that's exactly the part of psychology I want to do. And I remember them telling me, like, it's not a job. But I was so annoyed because we'd spent like a good hour, like, exploring coaching and motivational interviewing. And I was like, this is what I want to do. So I just continued my degree. And it would just like happen chance that it was right when Beautiful You did the pilot round of the course. That is the course we both trained in. And it had just sold out the pilot course. So I was like, doing my university degree, I'm like, I'm going to do this course as well. So that's what I basically did. I did the course while I was finishing my university degree. I did some things where I did summer school so I could go down a subject while I did the course. And then I graduated from my university degree and the course like within months of each other. And that's actually when we first worked together all those years ago, because I did that thing that is very common for neurodivergent people is finish something big and then have a massive burnout. So that was me. And we were working together and I was working from my parents' couch a lot. I went on some holidays and that's how I started my work. I was kind of like, I'm going to put this out there, see what happens. And here we are. I think it's for me 11 years later, having this conversation. But yeah, so that's how I started my work and got into it. And I kind of feel like I was always meant to do this work, even though like we do talk a lot because we're always chatting together about how hard it is to continue and to keep doing this work because obviously there's so much more to it than just doing the part that you want to do. So it's hard, but it's worth it. And I do feel like I was meant to do something in this realm of the work.
I love that so much. And I think you're so right in terms of like the glossy stuff on the outside that we see online and when people are selling their courses and their programs and things and they talk about like what starting an online business is like. And then there's like, in our group and in Immersion Expand, like we'll sit behind the scenes and just talk about like what really is going on,
Hmm.
what we're experiencing. And I think it's so helpful to have those real and honest conversations, but also that space to like reflect. And it makes me think about the work that I know that you were doing when we first started
Hmm.
working together and seeing that evolve over time. Like, when it's challenging and you go through the ups and downs, like being able to keep showing up and trying new things and allow yourself to evolve as a person also then means that your work naturally evolves as well.
Hmm.
And when we were first working together, gratitude was the core focus of what you were doing.
Hmm.
And I love how that has now matured and evolved into like it's still there and it's still such a
Hmm.
present part of your work, but it's evolved into actually taking the time, creating the space to reflect back as well. And so it's been grateful in the present moment, but also reflecting back on where
Hmm.
you've come from. Can you tell me a little bit about why reflection and your reflection sessions and the work that you do now, like why that has become such a big part of your work now and why you
Hmm.
think not only for yourself but for other people as well, this is something we should be prioritizing in our lives?
Hmm. I think it was just a natural thing because it was such a big thing in my own personal life and practice. And also, I didn't realize this. It took me like many, many years of clients repeatedly saying to me, like, oh, you helped me like check back into what's important. Like, I love the reflection questions. And I
Mhm.
kept getting the same feedback again and again. And I sort of realized, oh, that's how I've been helping people. Like, I
Mhm.
sort of was just like generally doing what I just call general life coaching because I didn't know what area I wanted to coach in. And
Mhm.
over the years, just that repeated feedback. And then when I finally pieced it together, which probably took me longer than it should have, I was like, oh, that's like something that they're obviously getting out of our work together. And
Mhm.
then there was that really natural flow on effect that I was like, this is just like a really big way on how I live my life. I'm a very naturally reflective person. And I also need to reflect because I just feel like I didn't always know that I was neurodivergent, but I can really see how, like, getting caught up in things and having that kind of fast brain means sometimes you can just be in things for a very long time and not take a breath and take a moment to even think about, like, is this what I want to be doing anymore? So I think that's where it's come from me for me, like just like it being a really big part of the personal practice, that naturally coming into the coaching work and then the clients reflecting that back. And it's actually something that I just feel like I don't know. I was thinking about it the other day and I was like, if I didn't take the time to reflect, I think my life would look very different.
Mm.
And I think that's what it is. Like, even just recently, it was the winter solstice here, and I was doing some reflection on the weekend. And I just felt like I came back to myself when I was doing it. And I came back to what was important. And then I got really clear, like, okay, where are we heading now? And that's like the base. We know that's the basis of coaching almost in itself. So I feel like they tie really nicely to each other. And I was just thinking about it too, that like every time I've gotten off track in life, and gotten away from like the life I want to be living or the things I want to be doing, it's like one of those things where like even if I had taken a moment during that, I think I would have been able to get myself back to alignment a lot quicker.
Mhm. Yeah, that's such a great point. And oh my gosh, so many different directions that I feel like we could go here with this
Mhm,
conversation. But even just in that, like, I think, especially for neurodivergent people, we have a lot of introverts in the community as well. And, anyone who is sort of has to be mindful of their energy and having a like, even just probably everyone, to be honest, in
mhm,
2026 is, like, just inundated with information every day, and there's so many shiny things and distractions and platforms that we can just get lost down rabbit holes of, but I think neurodivergent people in particular can find it really tricky to
mhm,
stay focused on what is it that I actually want and what are the simple steps that are gonna get me there versus, like, all the shiny things that are vying for
mhm,
our attention. And what I love about what you do and the conversations that we have is that taking that pause actually removes you from all of that noise and gives
yep,
you that space to come back to exactly as you said, what it is that you are really working towards, what the life you want is. And I love how that translates not just through your business, but it also the way that you apply it to your life as well because it means that everything is so intentional and
mm,
you're able to take that step back. And when people are like, you can tell when people are just getting burnt out all the time and they're switching from like this thing and then next week they're doing this thing, like there's so much urgency to keep up. And
mhm,
you're almost creating like this counterculture of like, well, what if you just didn't? What if you just stopped and took a
mhm,
step back from everything? What would you say across your life and your business since you started really intentionally creating these sessions for yourself and then also like sharing them with
mhm,
your clients and audience as well? Have you noticed either for yourself or in your life or even just within the people that you're working with? What have you noticed has made the biggest impact from doing this that maybe you didn't realize would actually be an
mm.
outcome from it?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is every single time I do it or facilitate it for other people, they
Yeah.
say, I needed this.
Yes.
And I do this too. So when I do my reflection practice, I have this little thing at the end that's like, do I have any other notes? Or because this is a part of my work, it's sort of important for me to like translate it into the work. And I have this little section at the end. And I was looking at it the other day. The whole column is, I really needed to do this today. It's so worth taking the time to do this. And I think that's just like evidence in itself that maybe the reasons for other people are different or why they needed that versus why
Mhm.
I needed it that day. But I just think it's kind of funny that we all do it and go, oh, I really needed that. And I think it's because it is something that does bring you back. Like it brings you back into the moment, it brings you back to yourself, it brings you back to what's important to you and that part around like the life you want to be living. So that would be my sort of like, I think that would probably be the biggest thing for myself and for other people as well. And one of the things I've loved recently is hearing that people that are coming to, because I do the same thing, I reflect back and look back on my previous reflections.
Yeah.
And I recently had a couple of people say to me, I've been like keeping all my reflections from the sessions together and looking back on them between each one and witnessing their own growth has been really
Mhm.
interesting for them. So that was just like a really cool thing to hear because we haven't been doing it for that long. We've just done the fourth one. So we've done a full seasonal cycle of the year. And I was like, oh, that's kind of cool that people are piecing them together now and witnessing the growth and change between the sessions.
Yeah, and I love that because it really says a lot about anyone who's working in coaching or even like energy healing, any kind of practitionership where you're bringing people on a journey or you're supporting them in that way. There's been such a shift I've noticed in the last couple of years towards like just offering one off sessions and then bringing
Hmm.
people into a group program and that sort of thing. And I think that what we've lost since when you and I studied coaching a million years
Hmm.
ago is this like how important a container is where people are coming in and then going on a journey where they have like the full experience and they have then that ability to look back and go, this is where I started and look at the progress that I've made.
Mm.
And I know we've had this conversation so many times before, even just about, like, how easy it is to focus on, like, the next thing and the next thing and the next thing and
Yeah.
moving the goalpost, and also like, "Oh, that didn't that didn't go as I planned. Oh, well, I'll just keep moving forward or I'll change everything all up again." And what I personally love about reflecting, and again, I know we've talked about this a million times, is that ability to just actually look back and have almost a different view or that you're looking
Mm.
at it back on and going, "Okay, what didn't work?" Sure, it's easy to point out those things. It's easy to keep pushing forward, which coaching is always about moving
Hmm.
forward. But that ability to look backwards kind of allows us to go, "Okay, what didn't work and what did I
Hmm.
really not enjoy or what felt really draining or out of alignment for me?" Actually ask those powerful questions. And as coaches, like being able to even kind of look into our own selves and ask ourselves those powerful questions helps us to be able to use our skills in our own lives and business as well. But to also then go, okay, but what am I bringing with me? What do I need to do
Mm.
differently? You said the most perfect thing right before we jumped on and started
Hmm.
recording because we talked a little bit before this, even just about, oh, it actually did, this worked really well. I just need to do
Hmm.
it more. And
Yeah.
that is the kind of thing I think that when you're just moving forward and focusing on what comes next, you don't have that insight. Can you talk a little bit more about how you've noticed that for yourself, also in the
Hmm.
conversations that we've had in our group, but also like with your clients as well, what you've
Mm.
noticed in that regard?
I think the biggest thing is like reflecting once won't change your life, but doing it again and again and again will.
Yeah.
It is one of those things that's like, yes, in the moment, like doing a reflection is amazing. But I think the more you do it, the
Mm,
more you sort of like, I always think of it like if you're following a path or something. So like the path is like your goal and where you want to go. I feel like
mhm.
life takes us off it so much. And reflection is sort of something I think that brings us back to that path. And
Yeah.
also you can also make the decision to go a different path. Like if there is a fork in the road, maybe this isn't the path that you want to go on anymore.
Mm,
But that's how I kind of see it in my mind. In my mind, it's like a forest or something like that too. It's very like cozy and fantasy like. But I think that's like the biggest thing. Like it's just doing it again and again and again
mm,
actually just helps you come back because you also change and grow too as a person. So it's not always going to be the same thing that you want to continue with. One of the things I love to ask people when they feel off track is like, do you actually want this anymore? Like, is this something you even want? And
yeah.
it's always really interesting to just
Mhm.
sit with that with yourself and for other people as well to be like, are you actually like, is this the direction you even want to go in anymore? Is this what you actually want to do? Is this still important to you?
Yeah, such incredible questions. And there is like these two kind of camps where there's people who just want to change everything, like, oh, that, I'm just going to change that and not even
Mhm,
kind of review it, but just allow our like themselves to be impacted by the noise outside and
mhm,
led by that. I think as introverts we have to be so mindful of that because we have like a softer energy field, and I think that that means that because we're influenced by other people's energy so much and need that time to recharge, it
mhm,
also means we have to be so mindful of like what we're hooked into, because we can just get pulled so far off track by a bigger energy or a trend that's happening that we feel like
mhm,
we need to be part of, or we're never going to fit in or be successful. Like that's just such a part of like the life experience, I think, that so many introverted and neurodivergent people have had. And so like what I love about your work and the way that you talk about it is not only is it self-leadership to pull yourself out of
mhm,
that noise and disconnect from all of that and actually be over here like so introvert friendly as well, to just take that step back and go, no, I need to be in my own space, not just reflecting, but re-energizing, coming
mhm,
back to myself, letting go of all of those things that the world is telling me I should be or I need to be doing. So there's like the self-leadership of stepping back from that. But there's also, what I talk about a lot as well, this difference between having a proactive business and a reactive one.
mhm.
Because when you're taking that time to look back and, it doesn't have to be all the time. I think we can get stuck in that a little bit too much if we're not careful.
Yeah.
And again, your seasonal, like quarterly reflection sessions is such a perfect way to check in enough and then set a
Mhm,
path to move forward with. But having that ability to disconnect from the reactive, like reacting to all the what's going on over here, and actually go, what do I want? What isn't working? What
mhm,
don't I want anymore? There's such great questions that I think more of us need to ask before we
mhm,
just start jumping into things that we think we should be doing or doing differently, or that like everybody else seems to be doing that. So I should probably do that too. And
mhm,
that can come from like, oh, jumping on a new platform and feeling like, oh, I'm doing this, but I need to do this and I should be doing this because these people are all doing this. But also just in terms of like taking that time to go, you know, is this something that I should stop right now because it doesn't feel like it's working? But when you
mhm.
actually look back at it, you realize that you're just so early in the journey,
Yeah.
and giving yourself the space to keep going with that versus like veering off path, because
Mhm,
just use the I always say like getting lost in the woods and that sort of thing as well. So like veering off path and then getting way more off track
mhm,
than just actually giving it a little bit more time. What would you say to anyone who is feeling a little bit like that right now and
mhm,
listening to you talk and share what you do, and really thinking like, "Oh, actually, I need to make more space for this in my life and in my business."
mm. So many things. The first thing is like something you mentioned about getting caught up in reflection. So I have a saying and it's like
Mm.
reflect and then go live your life. Like don't
Oh,
get
I
stuck
love
in the
that.
reflecting part. Go live. And I say this when we do our sessions because I'm like, go live your life. And we're going to come back here if you want to in a few
Yeah,
months and check in.
yeah.
So I always think that's really interesting. But the thing that came to mind when you were saying all that is space. Like,
Mm.
what do you need? What space do you need? So, for example, I had a really big autumn and everything was leading to like one thing.
Yeah,
And it was like a lot of work. And I was pushing quite hard intentionally, knowing that this was just a season.
yeah.
And when after it happened, I actually couldn't reflect on it clearly. I don't think. Like, I tried to reflect, but I didn't really have a lot of insights.
Mhm.
And one of the things that I noticed I needed was just some space and time
Yeah.
to actually just get some distance from it. And no, it wasn't even that long. It's only a few weeks. And I've been able to see it so much more clearly now. So, like, I guess the question that I would propose if someone's like, oh, I'm trying to reflect and I'm kind of like, it's not working, I would just say, like, what do you need? Like, do you need some space? Do you need some time? Does it need to be something that you go, I like doing something called like a reflection walk. So sometimes sitting down to reflect is even though naturally I'm like writing is the way that I naturally reflect, but sometimes I just need to actually like go and ponder something and get that movement at the same time. So
Mhm.
I would actually ask that, like, what do you actually need? Like, one thing that I've found really interesting is like, I'm happy and content being on my own.
Mhm.
And I was struggling to do my weekly reflections and monthly reflections on my own for a little while.
Mhm.
And last year I was like, oh, I'm just going to experiment with doing these sessions just for my people that had joined a project that I created in the early stages as like a thank you for them. And a benefit for me was like, oh, I'm just going to get to experiment with these sessions before they become part of my work.
Yeah.
And the first session we did together, I said to everybody in the group, like, oh, I didn't realize how lonely I was doing this on my own. And this is someone like I spent a lot of time alone. I'm quite happy being alone. But there was something really special about, and it wasn't even about like, of course, there's natural accountability with coming together like that. But it was something other than that. Like, I was actually meant to be like the space holder, and I was the space holder, but like, I was also doing the reflections with everybody just because it felt like, I don't know, it felt like the natural thing to do. It felt more inspiring. It felt like something that I was in the state for. And I don't know if that's because they're intentionally structured in a way that we sort of like ease into it and drop in a little bit, and then we do the reflections. And maybe I wasn't doing that process for myself, but just doing it in connection with other people was like something I've never experienced before in this practice. And I was like, I did the first one and I was like to everybody, I never know if I'm going to do this again. And even during the session before it had ended, I was like, we're going to do this again.
Amazing. I love that. And I always do that with our calls, with our monthly check-in calls. I'm
Mhm,
like, oh, surely nobody wants to go through this again. And
mhm,
it is. I have the same thing for myself. And I know that everyone says, like, oh, I'm so glad we did this, because it's really challenging when the world is demanding so much from you. And those reflection sessions are really for yourself to
yeah.
like learn and grow and just evaluate, review what you've been doing and how you've been feeling. It's so easy to keep putting that to the bottom of the pile,
Mhm,
especially for so many people who have, a lot of us are solopreneurs. So you've got a million balls that you're trying to keep in the air, but
mhm,
also the roles and responsibilities that we have for our clients and our families and, all of the other things that we're doing. It's so easy to put it to the bottom of the pile and just never get around to it. So for anyone who is like that, or is realizing like, oh, it's been a while since I've even stepped back and had a look at my goals and really thought about where I've been and where I want to go for, say, the rest of this year, how do you make time for it? And what have you found really works for you
mhm,
that you would share with anyone who is
mhm,
thinking like, actually, I can see now it seems like a soft skill. It seems like a fluffy thing to kind of do a
mhm.
little bit, but it really does make a difference when we prioritize it. So what have you found that's worked for you to keep on track with that?
I sort of make it a natural part of the life. So I see it in two ways. Like, I have a very structured practice. It's my own personal practice that I do, but I sort of bring it into my days and weeks in sort of easy ways. So my partner and I do like a walk together every day. And that's sort of like a daily reflection, just very naturally because you're walking and it's just like, oh, we'll talk about, like, we haven't been together, we'll talk about the day.
Yeah.
So things like that. Also, we do a once a week, dinner on a Sunday night. We do like a weekly reflection, and it is really simple. It's
Amazing.
kind of just like what worked well this week, what didn't work well, what do we want to do differently this week, just really simple questions. And we do like, the rose thorn buds, so like what
Mhm.
was the highlight of the week and what was the low light of the week and what are we looking forward to, just really simple questions just while we're having dinner, so it doesn't take any more time that I don't have, like I don't need to have extra time to do that.
Yeah.
I also notice with some people, like, it's actually my partner has ADHD as well, and sitting down to talk to him is not something that works. So we often bring things into our life, like walking, driving, eating dinner, like we're already doing all those activities. So we just sort of bring them into the activities we're already doing.
Oh,
For me, I do a practice every single week myself, and I have noticed that I do resist it most weeks. When
yeah.
I do it, sometimes it only takes me like 15 minutes really to actually do the weekly reflections. And that's through writing. And that's actually with a lot of questions, just because I like to experiment with questions myself to bring into my work.
Mhm.
So I do have that sort of extra layer there, but I do it. And every time I do it, I look at the time going, that didn't take as long as I was
Yeah.
expecting it to take. So I do that as well. I like to do my own monthly reflections. My seasonal reflections now have been happening like in that session itself, just because I'm doing it. I do normally carry them into the rest of the day a bit too, just because I'm in space holder mode as well as facilitator mode. But what I've noticed is I can actually do it quite quickly. And I think that's just through repetition and practice that I've been able to do that. So that people actually ask for a little bit more time per question, because I had it very short just because I don't need that much time. But it's been really good for me to have the extra time, because I was reflecting, and then like I could like be in the chat or just hold the space and things like that. And then there's other things in my life as well. Like, for example, like our monthly call in Emerge and Expand is that day that we do that call, I know that I'm going to reflect on the business and I'm going to do that process. And that often gets carried into the day too. If there's anything that's sort of come up that I'm like, oh, well, I've identified this, I can, put it into the project manager and actually take those extra steps. And most of the things there are already sort of a part of my actual life. It's more just the personal practice that I do on the weekend is the one that I make time for. And I'm always like, I don't have time for this. And then it takes 10 minutes and I'm like, I needed this. I can't believe I resisted. Like, it's the same story every single week. I can't believe how quick this took just to check in. And the monthly one and the seasonal one, I like to take more time, but I like the weekly one being this thing that's almost so easy that I'm like, it's too easy to not do. And even if I don't do a structured version, like I can do things like when I drive to dance class on a Monday in the car. Sometimes I just do the process. If I didn't have time because the weekend was busy, with the structure of my life, like the weekend, I normally have a day where like I have some more time and space. But if I don't, I just like bring it in life in other ways. I've sat at the doctor's office before, like on my phone in my reflection spreadsheet, like typing it out, just because that's just the way life was happening that week.
Yeah.
So I do like to make the commitment to do it every week in the way that I ultimately want to do it. I love when I get my Remarkable out and I'm like writing it and stuff like that. But often it just happens in the spreadsheet wherever I can fit it in. And I was outside the other day and I was like, oh, I need to bring my reflections outside more. That was really nice. So sometimes it's nice to have rituals and practices that you do yourself, but also allowing that novelty to come in of like, oh, I'm doing it outside today, or I'm doing it in a different way today, just to kind of keep it like engaging and exciting. And I kind of find reflection fun, but maybe that's just me. So I kind of like doing it.
You know what I really love? There's so many things that you said there that I was just like, oh, so many good practical tips for people who just want us like realizing that actually being able to stop and reflect is really important. So thank you for that, because what I love is like there were so many things there that I didn't know about, and I know you very well. We spent a
Really?
lot of time talking throughout the week. And so
Yeah.
I love the incidental nature and the intentional nature of the way that you integrate this into your life. So a lot of people in my audience are neurodivergent, introverted, highly sensitive, living with chronic pain or chronic illness. And this is a conversation that comes up so much. Like, we already have so much to do. We already have so much on our plate. Like, adding more is just, I don't have time. I
Yeah.
don't have the capacity for that. That's the thing that I have heard the most in the last few years, since capacity has been a word that, people have learnt and it's become a part of the vernacular. Like, it then has become a really, easy kind of, and not easy, but like we have to be mindful of our capacity, but also it's been something I've heard a lot. I don't have the capacity for that. And what I love about what you just shared is that in no of those examples, except the one that you resist every week, and I'll talk about that in a sec, did you add something new in. You just took something you were already doing and created a ritual around it. And so that is so magical and cozy and wonderful. I loved that so much. So thank you for sharing that. And then the one that you resist, when you were talking about that, what I love is, for everyone who's listening to this and watching it, the first thing is that the work that we are the most called to do is so often the work that we resist the most. So what we teach you, what is that old saying, that cliche saying of like, we teach what we most need to learn. And you sharing that, I think, is really helpful, because I think a lot of us, myself included, look at the way that you've built these systems for yourself to support you as someone who is neurodivergent and introverted and managing your energy and, doing your business, but then also, a lot of other things outside of that too. is that I look at what you do and I'm like, oh my gosh, Chloe has this amazing system for how she runs her business and runs her life and does it in a really intentional way. But I really appreciated that you said that you resist that every week because it's a reminder that sometimes the most important things aren't always the easiest things.
Mhm.
They're simple to do because it takes 10 minutes, but it's not the easiest thing because it's so easy to like just sit and scroll on your phone for another 10
Mhm.
minutes or, do something else for 10 minutes and not do that. And so I really appreciated you sharing that as well.
I'm so glad. And I will say there is some enticing going on here. So, like, when I do my reflections, I often get out what I call my special teas. So they're not my everyday teas. Like I get out the Buddha teas. And my partner got me this really cool green tea that comes like in a tin that's like really special. So often there is some enticing, like the nice tea or like a nice treat and like making the environment nice, like, oils in the diffuser, some music. And then I'm like, oh, yeah, I'm feeling this a bit more. So sometimes there is that step before around like getting into the state that you need to be in to do things.
Yeah, but it's still always about ritual, right?
Yeah.
And novelty, as you said, and that's gonna be different for everyone.
Hmm.
The other thing that I really love is that I've sort of watched you building this over at least the last 12 months, but I think
Hmm.
building it in your own life and business first to be able to then build it into your
Hmm.
business and the work that you do with your clients. And we had a conversation about this the other day. And I think what a lot of people think is like, oh, there's this perfect system out there that exists for whatever that might be, whether it's content creation, whether it's goals and planning, whatever it is, there's like this, we all have this like little part of us that thinks there's this magic system out
Hmm.
there that exists that other people know about that I don't know about. And I just need to find it. And then everything will be easier.
Yeah.
And watching you build this for yourself and building the systems and the rituals around it has not been an overnight thing.
Hmm.
It's been something that's evolved over time. But can you talk a little bit more about the things that, how you've done that in a way that it does require patience? And for
Yeah.
those of us who are neurodivergent, we don't always have that. And it's kind of getting it wrong, getting it wrong and
Hmm.
figuring it out. What have you found has really helped you in that process? And again, I know you're gonna share some amazing little gems of just little things that you started to
Hmm.
integrate into what you do early that have really made a massive difference that I know other people are gonna get so much from. Can you share a little bit of that with us?
Definitely. So, like, it's been about like a year in the making for these actual sessions, which are going to be a big, like, there's a structure here. Like, we know it's once a season. So you can already see, like, oh, there's a flow here. Like, if it happens at the end of the season, that last month leading up to it, there's certain things that probably need to happen. And then after the session, there's probably things that need to happen. That's probably the most important part of the process. So, creating the structure and the systems for this has been taking that time after. And this is so funny because we've talked about reflection so much to reflect. And I did that the day of this time because there was even just little things. For example, like my wireless keyboard, because it never needs charging, it wasn't on the charging list to remind me the day before. So that's just like a really little thing that the day of the call, I like wrote down like what worked well, what didn't work well, what do I want to do differently. And that's just like such a simple reflection that we can bring into so many different areas of our life. But the next step that I actually did is even on that day was the keyboard being got put into the right place. So with the way I set things up in my business and the way the tasks are, I just went straight to that task in the template and added that in because it wasn't in there. So there's that little step of like reflection, but then taking some action, but also the reminders for the future. Now, this is like something that I don't know, like we talk about this a bit, but I feel like it fits in right here because this is what I did on the day of the last session. And I've done this every single session I've done now. So 4 of them. I have written a note for myself to read in the lead up to the next session.
Mhm.
And this is just around little things
Yeah.
like like what I said before, what worked well, what didn't, and what I want to do differently because it's so easy to forget when you do the process again. And I don't mind making mistakes and things not working, but I don't want to be making the same mistake every single session for a year and not charging the keyboard every time and not like learning from that, if that makes sense. This is something that's really interesting for me. And I don't know, I think this comes from being neurodivergent and not knowing it. So I've always been someone, like we would go on a family holiday when I was a teenager and I would like survey everyone when we would travel home. Like, what did you guys like about this trip? What didn't you like? What do you want to remember? Like, what worked well? Like, just little things like that. And I would make a note for us to read the next holiday. So we would remember all these things.
That is
And I
amazing.
think it is a natural process because it's just something for me that I've always sort of had to find my own way of working and operating because the natural default hasn't always worked for me and I didn't know why, but obviously we have more context for that now when we understand these things about ourselves. So this is something that I do really regularly and this system and structure has been built out with this in mind.
Mhm.
So just like these things, like I even had one pop up in my calendar the other day. It was like, read this before the session. And it's almost like someone has come to like someone from the future or the past has come to give you a message, but it's you. And it's a bit ominous. So when it pops up, because I have like a really simple system in my life that I use Google Calendar
Mm.
and everything that I need to remember gets put in as it used to be reminders, but they've moved them to a task, but it's very similar. So I know every day there's only one place I need to check, and that's Google Calendar, and that will remind me of everything I need to do.
Yeah.
Now, I do have like, my email inbox, and then I have my work management project stuff in Asana, which I don't love, but I just don't want to change it. And that's where I know I have to check my work stuff. So just really simple things like that. But this note came up in Google. It was like, read this before the session. And it was so ominous because I didn't remember what it was going to say. Like sometimes I do remember. And I read this note from my past self just about like the things I want to remember and like the space I need to give myself and like what I want to do sort of in the lead up, just like little things, but also big things too. Just like taking the pressure off myself and being
Yeah.
like, we don't have to do it all this week. It's okay if other things fall aside. Like this is the most important thing. And
Mhm.
it's almost a form, well, I call it a form of self-coaching because you're almost in the moment. Once you've identified the things that didn't work and what did work, you're almost like putting that into the future because you will probably naturally forget anyway. And then it comes back up and it's like my past self is coaching my current self. And it's a really bizarre thing, but it works really well for me. So that's something that's really helped with this process just
Mhm.
because it is a 3-month situation where like, because it's once a season, that is a bit of time to pass to keep everything fresh in the mind.
Mhm.
And I always say I have a very good memory and I do, but I still like this process because I think even the process of leaving those reminders and leaving those notes and setting up the tasks actually helps to instill it in the memory further anyway.
Sure.
And then if you do forget, you've got that fallback and that process there for you. I'm not sure if that answered your question, but that's just a little bit into like how this structure has come about and how I've sort of been experimenting with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And the things that I really took from that I want to reflect back to you is first of all, there is no perfect system and keeping it as
Mhm.
simple as possible. Because I know you use Google Calendar, you use your notes app, like everyone thinks you've
Mhm.
got these big fancy systems that you've created. And instead, what you do is you do what I love to talk about all the time. Like you've built the path of least resistance. So
Mhm.
you've actually and I don't even know if you realize this, but I just noticed it
Mhm.
by as you were talking, you've actually built your systems around all of the things that are just easy to do. And so the
Mhm.
notes from your past self is a system within itself that is literally the easiest way that you could do it because
Mhm.
it's built this infrastructure around you to support you. But like you said, it's you supporting you in the future.
Mhm.
It means that you don't need to rely on your memory and your brain, which let's face it, our brains on the best of days can be a little bit
Mhm.
uncertain and like wacky and doing their own thing. It means you're not relying on your holding that energy inside of
Mhm.
you and in your
Yeah.
mind to remember for next time. You have outsourced that to your past self to leave yourself that
Mhm.
note, but in a really easy way. And what I see so often is people trying to build or take on somebody else's cumbersome
Yeah.
like a big Notion kind of fancy
Mhm.
thing, all the different pages and whatnot, and I've done that a million times, and I always come back to, like, a spreadsheet, my Google Calendar, my notes app as well, and it's like, there's no fancy system, there's just the system that you build little bit at a time.
Mhm.
And the simpler you can make it, the easier it's going to be to maintain it as well. And that's what I got from what you just said, that like every little thing, you're not relying on your future self, your current self
Yeah.
to remember. Your past self is doing that work for you. And that is literally the most proactive business tip that I think I've ever heard,
Mhm.
because you're actually doing the work in the moment so that your future self doesn't have to rely on, figuring it out again. And you're right, the reps on the board are important,
Mhm.
but what it is you're not throwing it out and starting again every single time. So every season, every time you're running it, you can't leave notes to your future self if your future self is going to keep throwing the playbook out
Yeah.
and starting again. And
Mhm.
so this system allows you to keep building on what you've already built and improve it, maintain it, tweak it, evolve it every single time. And I know for some of us, we can really want to change and go, "Oh, no, I should do it this way
Mhm.
this time. That didn't work." But really, this way that you shared with us is the way I wish that more people would adopt, because
Mm.
that is the way you get to where the people you look up to, what they have in place has been built over years of trying and tweaking and testing and evolving it and
Yep.
trying again, and building these systems out rather than constantly jumping from one thing to another. And I just love how you have done that, but also how you've shared that with us today as well. So I
Mhm.
hope that like reflecting that back to you, you can
Mm.
see you absolutely answered the question and you brought so much value there in terms of how important this is, even if it seems like it's a bit boring. Like, most people are like, "Oh, I
Yep.
don't have time for that. I'm not going
Mhm.
to find that interesting." Such a valuable and vital part of running a business, I think, and life in general, like living an intentional
Mhm.
life and not just being, pulled away with the emotions that you're in that day as well. So thank you so much for sharing that.
You're welcome. I think a big thing is just like you have to find what works for you. And gathering inspiration from other people is a great idea to like sort of try things on, but
Yeah.
you've got to come up with a system that works for you. And I always joke it's been very hard for people in my network when I got diagnosed with ADHD because they were like, "No, you are the most organized person we know." I'm known for that in my network.
Yeah.
But I think what I have done is just I have these structures in my life that support me. And I've sort of found some systems that work that are very easy for me to do. I don't come across like with the certain like ADHD symptoms just because of some of these systems and structures. So in some ways, like I don't know if that's a good or bad thing, but it definitely is applied to the business, and I am trying to do more of the things that like in my life I'm very system and structured, but I've been trying to bring that into the work as well because I know it will support me. And there's something that feels so nice about going into Asana when this session comes up and having the task template be accurate and up to date. Because if I was trying to remember 3 months ago and like even the little things in the process that maybe need to be altered, I don't think I'd be able to. And I go in there and I feel really supported, like, "Oh, we're ready to do this again."
Yeah.
And I think we talk about this a bit and we've talked about it recently, and you even mentioned it then.
Yeah.
It's very easy, I think, when you have an online business to constantly do things differently all the time.
Yeah.
But there's something to be said about sticking to a process and
Mm.
seeing it through and actually tweaking that instead of like trying a million different things. And I didn't think I was going to share this analogy, but it's too perfect not to. But as a rugby fan, as a Melbourne Storm supporter, I have been really interested this year to witness them because I
Yeah.
started watching in a pandemic. They're a pretty successful team, and this year they went on the biggest losing streak of the club's history, and they lost 7 games in a row. They came out of that and they were getting asked a lot about it. And the coach was getting asked about, like, what did you do differently? And he didn't say, he said nothing. We stuck with our process and our system because we know it works. And we
Mm.
stuck with the same structure. We just knew we needed to give it time. And the players, there's a lot of things going on, like players, new players and different players playing different positions and all
Mm.
kinds of things. But he just said we stuck to our system and we stuck to our process. And it's been one of the most inspiring things for me this year to actually be like to myself, like, can I stick with this structure and process? Knowing that the more that I do it and give it the time it needs, that it is going to continue to work and it's going to be supportive in the long term. Because I think even after my last session, I was like, I'm going to do everything differently next time. And that was just a reactive decision, probably from, having such a big build up, like
Yeah,
a
yeah,
year in the making, 3 months of quite intense work, doing the session. It went really well. It was actually really beautiful. And I felt the most competent and confident doing it than I ever have before. The
mhm,
feedback was great. People are here for, like, want to come for the whole year.
yeah,
I'm like, could it have actually gone any better than that, really? But it is a lot of, I think, like you talk about a lot, you're holding a lot of energy. And when that drops, it can be really hard to hold.
yeah,
So I've actually made a note about that specifically for next time, like
mm,
actually giving myself the next week almost to sort of do not bare minimum business, but just to stay in this like sort of reflective reviewing mode to get the task set up for next time, just knowing that that probably is going to happen in the aftermath of the session, and even just to remind myself to expect that so I don't resist it or make it wrong.
yes,
And I think that's actually going to help, like, each session and each season to keep showing up, because the process is working and the process is working well for me and
yeah,
it's working well for the people who come. They feel very informed going into the session and that's all working well. But it's so interesting how tempting it is to go, I'm just going to do something different.
yeah,
And we spoke about this recently, but I try to find novelty in my life so then I can be consistent and repetitive in my business. And I'm not using my business to find that dopamine and novelty. I'd rather do it outside of my work and then really see things through. And you're such a good reminder for this for us, because
mhm,
you're always reminding us, like, when someone tries like a new strategy, you're like, how long have you tried this for? Have you given it 90 days? And I always think of this when, because you say it so much, I'm always like, have I actually given this the time it needs?
yeah,
And particularly for me, working on a seasonal basis, like, I've only got 4 a season for this
mhm,
to work. This isn't something that's happening super regularly. So it will take a time and a longer time for the process to sort of like figure itself out and for me to refine the system.
yeah, for sure. Ah, so good. So many just gems, and I knew this chat was gonna be amazing, and I knew that, even though we've been we've had a few little bumps to get here because 'cause we've been talking about doing this podcast for, I think, at least 2 years now,
Yeah.
and I knew it was gonna be so good because we have so many great conversations about this, but what I really love is more than I even expected. How many I hope everyone goes back and re-watches or re-listens to this because there are so many good little nuggets in there of things that are practical and tangible that you can take and actually implement really easily. Like, I need to go back and I'm going to be taking notes of all the lovely little things that you do. And even you said there about how you bring dopamine, the novelty into your life so that you don't need to
Mhm.
create that in your business. So good. But also, the what you do is you create the novelty around the ritual, but you
Yeah.
still do the same things. So the
Mhm.
novelty is the teas and the essential oils and the playlists
Mhm.
and the outside and the getting the remarkable out and,
Mhm.
like, getting to do things. The novelty is not around changing strategies constantly.
Yeah.
It's
That's a really
around
good
the
point.
little supporting, little fun treats and
Mhm.
things that you create in order to make that what like I always say, do the boring things. Do the boring things and do them over and over and over again because 'cause they're the
Mhm.
things that work. And what you have managed to do in your business is create the novelty around doing the boring things so that you still get the dopamine, you still have the
Mhm.
joy, you can still try little new things out, but you still keep showing up consistently and doing the same things that need to get done. And so that, I think, could be
Mhm.
the biggest takeaway from this time today that you said, because it's not like keep doing the things that need to get done, stop jumping into new stuff, but find little ways to make those things fun for you.
Mm.
And I think that that is so magical. Whenever I see you pop up on Instagram or even we just have conversations, I'm always just like, you're living the cozy life that I crave and talk about so often. But it comes back to how intentional you are and how many little rituals and moments of joy that you have committed to every day in your life where things can get so, pulled in different directions and there's things people need from you and it's so easy to drop all of that and do that. And I just love how much you've committed to, no, I need this in order to show up for that stuff. It's just so wonderful.
I think that's like the best compliment I've ever been given.
Oh, I'm
And thank
sorry.
you for seeing me, because we talk about this a lot. So 11 years ago, I was like a coach in a training. Like I was very young as well, even though I didn't feel young because I'd been into personal development for like a decade by then, but I was young. And you were the first example of someone in that I had witnessed that was like me, that was like more introverted, that was more quiet, that like had that visibility stuff, but was still going to do it anyway. And I always think it's so interesting because I was like, if you hadn't have been a trainer in the course and I hadn't crossed paths with you and then worked with you, like, would I still be here? And I don't think the answer is yes, because we've had a long-term relationship now. And I will say that like Emerge and Expand that I'm in is like my week is literally like I protect the time as much as I possibly can to come along to the calls and co-working because that's where I get my most work done. That's where I actually come back to actually like, oh, I'm going to keep going because we joke all the time that it's also not a joke, that it's
Yes.
normal to want to quit your business a lot.
Right.
And it happens very regularly. And I don't think we talk about it a lot because sometimes it's also not appropriate. Like, I'm not a business
Mhm.
coach, so I'm not
Mhm.
talking about business,
Yeah.
talking more about life. But I totally love that. Like, and I know for others in the group too, like, this is a real highlight of our week and it helps us keep going. So it's because of you and the way you support us and the way you encourage us to find our own way of doing things because you're not prescriptive in the way that you like support us. Yeah, I'm like, I don't think I would still be here. So a massive thank you to you for all your support for like 11 years now, basically. That's a long
I'm
time.
like trying to hold it together right now and not cry. That is the most beautiful thing to say. Thank you so much. And I know we talk about this so often, like we'll quit tomorrow. You know, whenever it comes
Mhm.
up in conversation, we'll quit tomorrow. And the
Yeah.
feeling always passes. But the joy of having like-minded people around to be able to, you know, to know that it's not
Mhm.
just you, I think makes the biggest difference. And I'm so grateful to have you in my world and in my life because the same, you know, it is even for myself, the same with you and your reflection sessions, like you hold that space, sure, but you're going through it as well. You're in the trenches
Mhm.
too. And it's exactly the same as well for me in that you all bring and reflect so much back to me. And that's what I need that fills my cup and helps me to keep going too. So it's such a beautiful, mutually beneficial thing. And being in that group space, and I know for your reflection sessions, it's the same. It just gives permission for everyone to be able to be themselves and to have that
Mhm.
experience, but do it together. And so, in saying that, I'm going to ask you now as we're finishing
Mhm.
up. First of all, thank you just so much for all of your kind words, but all of the beautiful things that you shared today. But also for anyone who is listening to this and going, okay, Chloe is amazing, which everyone will be doing that. But what is it? How can they get in on what you're doing and be guided by you in this way? What is the best way for them to explore your work further and come and join one of your reflection sessions as well?
I reckon the best place is probably my Substack. So I have a Substack called A Year of Coaching and Reflection, and that's where I'm spending most of my time and energy at the moment. Probably too much time and energy, to be honest, because we're still in like the beginning stages, but it is a real joyful way for me to show up. And basically, I created a project that gives people accessible access to coaching. Like, I'm a coach with about 11 years of experience now, and it's delivered to your inbox. It's very easy just to follow along with. It's also choose your own adventure style. So as I'm sharing it live, you might be like, that's not the season I'm in. I actually am really surprised that I have a lot of people from the Northern Hemisphere because this is a seasonal project. Like, I just shared questions for the winter solstice and they still follow along with it and get value from it, which has been so surprising and unexpected. But what I love about it is I'm building out an archive and I'm building out a body of work. So what's actually really cool about it is if that's not what's the support you need, I feel like it's still a prompt to come to the archive and find something maybe that's more suited. And as I'm building this out, I'm nearly at a year. So the next year will be really cool to be able to actually link the alternative. So in the winter solstice post, we'll be able to put the summer solstice posts and things like that. So that's probably the best way to connect with me. I love Substack. It's really aligned to me as someone who values long form writing and reading. And that's where I hang out. And I'm just over there with my name, Chloe Wigan. So you can just search me and you'll find me hanging out over there.
Amazing. I will make sure that we link not just the Substack, your Instagram as well, because you're on there in stories quite a bit. Chloe just has the most beautiful stories that I just want to live inside of about her cozy life, and also your reflection sessions for anyone that wants to come along. I will make sure that we link all of those in the show notes for anyone who wants to explore that further and has been inspired. I know I have been. I've been so inspired. I'm like, I'm coming to the next one. I need to make sure I make time for that. So thank you again so much for your time today, Chloe. I knew this was going to be a magical conversation. And yeah, thank you so much for just being here and bringing all of you to this conversation.
Thank you for having me. It's been so fun. And what I feel like I really needed to have this conversation with you this week. So I'm really grateful.